Good morning, everybody. It's still morning, just we're going to go over lesson one for ancient Egypt, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, let's get out of the way. Okay. All right. Now, so again, this is Egypt under the pharaohs. And again, for all these little guys along the way, if you want to answer those, you get extra credit. Some of you could kind of use it. So, geography skills, very important. So it says Egyptian civilization developed in the Nile River in northeastern Africa. So, first question is where do you think most of them lived and why? So, where do you think so based on it's telling you landforms and general way of looking at the area, what it looked like, where do you think they lived the most and why? So, how might the Nile, meaning the Nile River, have affected trade in ancient Egypt? Okay. So, again, it's really heavy that you look at this map and just kind of think about it. So, for example, we kind of called the Nile River kind of their highway. So, how would that affect trade? All right. And then, so again, it's going to start off in the geography, which it will for each new civilization. Now, this question here again is describe the Nile. And when it says the Nile, it means the Nile River and its importance to ancient Egypt. Okay, and then it goes through the very earliest history in ancient Egypt. So the question is, how did the yearly floods help Egyptian farmers? So again, look for your keywords. Would be farmers, floods. Those are your keywords to look for when you're reading. And again, this is similar to the question last section, last lesson. How did growing a surplus of crops affect ancient Egypt? And remember what we talked about for surplus. It means, surplus means extra. All right. And then they talk about the Old, Middle, and New Kingdoms. So obviously Tutankhamun is the most popular pharaoh, or the one we know the most about. The ironic part about that is he really wasn't that skilled or accomplished of a pharaoh. He was still fairly young. But we know the most about him because we found his intact tomb, which is extremely rare. So name one accomplishment of the pharaohs of the Middle and New Kingdoms. So what was something that was really important that they did? Okay, so how was the society organized? Again, we kind of did this last time with the Sumerians. So what's their society look like? What are they based off of? So you're going to see a similar graphic. So as you can see, the pharaoh was the top. You had the nobles, the priests, and the government officials. You have the scribes, which again is a very specialized profession in ancient Egypt. Scribes were basically, those were your writers. Those were your news people, the people who would, secretaries who write everything down and tell everybody what's going on. Because the hieroglyphics were so complicated, it was a very specialized job. So that's why they were so highly thought of. Then you have the merchants and the artisans. Again, your artisans are people who make things like clay pots, jewelry, baskets, wheelbarrows, important craftspeople. And your merchants are just people who trade goods. Those are your, grocers and things like that. Then at the very bottom again, you'll see the farmers, servants, and slaves. Now, again, the difference between servants and slaves is slaves are not paid, servants are. And slaves can quit and go find work elsewhere. Slaves cannot. So, in your question here, it says describe how Egyptian society functioned. How did it work? So, function just means how did it work? All right, and then we're going to talk about the Egyptian religion. Again, like the Sumerians, these guys were polytheistic or polytheists. They believed in many gods. And again, I also posted those enrichment videos so that you guys could get a better feeling on what the religion kind of looked like. And then this question is, again, what did the role of the afterlife play in the everyday lives of ancient Egyptians? All right. And then you've got, the interactive gallery, and you can play around with that. Now, you've got some of the most powerful rulers that they talk about. So Hatshepsut was a very popular ruler. Now, this question here says, okay, based on this statue, how do you think they felt about the rule, about Hatshepsut? So, and then this one, what action showed that Hatshepsut, Thutmose III, and Ramesses II were great rulers? So what did they do to make them so great, make them so important? All right, and then you've got a biography specifically on Ramesses II. And here's a really good question. What qualities of leadership do you think Ramesses II had to have to make him successful? And when we're talking about qualities, we're talking about character traits. What kind of things? Was he bold? Was he intelligent? Was he flexible? Was he a good communicator, etc., so forth? What do you think he had to make himself so successful? All right, now here's our mandatory lesson check questions. So, what role did pharaohs, artisans, and the bureaucracy play in ancient Egypt? So what did each of those groups do that made them important? All right. And then second, how is the creation of mummies related to Egypt's dynasties? Now, I'm not asking you, pardon me, how do you create a mummy? I'm not asking how you create a mummy, but how is the creation of mummies related to the dynasty? So this goes more into their religion. What did they believe in how you preserved bodies for the afterlife? Why did it have to be so important for their dynasty? So I'm not asking you how you create a mummy. 3, how did the Nile, so the Nile River, contribute to the growth of ancient Egyptian culture? So how did that one river, and again, culture has to do with art, literature, language, holidays, religion, etc. So why was the Nile River so key in that? Okay, compare and contrast. So, compare and contrast the ways in which farmers and scribes contributed to ancient Egyptian civilization. Now, again, scribes are your writers, your record keepers, etc., so forth. Farmers is self-explanatory. So, how did each group contribute? So, compare and contrast them. Farmers did this while scribes did this. Etc. and so forth. And again, if you want to do the extra questions, you can still get extra credit. So again, it's what role did the pharaohs play in ancient Egyptians' religion? Because they weren't just kings. So read into that. Now, write a sentence that expresses the effects of geography on ancient Egypt. This sentence will become a thesis statement for an essay you will write at the end of the topic. Now, we're not really asking you to write an essay, but write a sentence that, again, it's what role did geography play in ancient Egypt? Okay, and that kind of goes back to the geography question. And I'm sorry you hear Rudy snoring in the background. Apparently he's tired. Okay, one more. There we go. So it goes back to this geography skills area. So if you want to complete that, you can go ahead and get some extra credit there too. All right, everybody. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.